Hi, Emily.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. Where are you based?
I'm in Perth, Western Australia, so we have a bit of a time difference at the moment, but luckily I'm a night person, you're a morning person.
Yeah, it's so funny. You're up really late and I'm up really early. So that's what you have to
It
do.
works out. Yeah.
Is that where you're from?
Yes, I am. I've lived here my whole life.
That's awesome. I've never been to Australia, but I really want to come one of these days.
I reckon it's the best place to live. There's
Yeah.
beaches, nice people, the lifestyle is really chill, so it's a pretty good place to live.
It's just a long travel time. It's like 24
Yeah.
hours
Yeah, it's a long time for you. Yeah.
to get there. I'm like, okay, I have
But
to
worth
plan
it.
that out.
Worth it. Yeah.
What do you do for fun?
For fun, I love to eat and I love to run. So, I feel like those hobbies balance each other out well. Um, but yes, I've really got into running since probably 2018. Before that, I was not a runner at all. But now I do it for fun, which is weird.
It is weird when you start running. You're like, wait, I like this.
Yeah.
Have you ran any races?
Yeah, I've done the New York Marathon in 2019,
Oh,
just
wow.
before COVID. So that was lucky because the year after it was cancelled. So that was sort of the big event that I've done. And then I've just done like a couple of half marathons and 12Ks and things like that.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
what do you do for work?
I'm a high school teacher. Um,
Amazing.
so I'm a science teacher by trade, but at the moment I'm doing special needs. So
Okay, amazing.
lots of variety in my job, but it's very rewarding.
Yes, I was going to say thank you for all your hard work because I
Yeah,
know some days it's probably not easy. So
right. It's very emotionally draining. Probably the most rewarding sort of field of teaching, I think.
yes, absolutely. So
Mm.
tell us about your type 1 diabetes diagnosis story.
Well, I was diagnosed as a baby, so everything I know is from my mum. I was only 14 months old and I was a very active baby. And all of a sudden, I was just super lethargic. I was wetting through all my nappies and kept asking for more bottles. And my parents knew something was wrong because I just didn't want to, play with my toys or my brother or anything. So they took me to the doctor and he ran a whole bunch of tests and just eventually said it was just a virus. I just needed to rest for a couple of days and it would get better. But over the next 24 hours, I got actually a lot worse and it got to the point where I was just sleeping pretty much all day. And so mum called the emergency hotline and they said, you need to bring her to the hospital straight away. And she took me there and pretty much they said, if you had have waited much longer, you would have lost her. So it was so traumatic for mum. I went straight to the ICU. I was super dehydrated, so they had to wrap me in a blanket to get my veins to be able to put a IV in, which was horrible for mum and dad. And then I stayed in there for about 2 weeks while they learned everything that they needed to know about how to take care of a little baby with type 1. And that was it. And when they went back to the doctor and said, you did all these tests, like how did you miss this? You must have tested her blood sugar. All the results had mysteriously gone missing. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was a bit of a traumatic diagnosis for my parents. Luckily I don't remember it, but yeah, very strange.
Oh my gosh, yeah, your poor parents. I can't even imagine that happening. Especially, do
Yeah.
you have type 1 in your family at all?
No, I was the first one.
Oh, that's even scarier because then you're like, I don't even know what this is. Like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
I had no
so
idea.
terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel bad for your parents. I mean, I feel bad for you too, but it's sometimes it's harder being a parent because
Oh,
you're not the
for
one
sure.
living with it. You know what I mean?
I know. And my dad, when I was growing up, and I would cry a lot about being different, and I could see how much it upset him. And I remember he used to just say to me, like, I wish I could take this from you. Like, I would do anything to take this instead of you, but I can't. So yeah, it's
Oh.
horrible for my parents, but I'm so lucky that they're so supportive and they've tried to make my life as normal as possible, which I really appreciate.
Do you know if you like were you sick before that? Do they remember you ever having like an illness or
Um,
anything right before?
no, I was super healthy. I think the people in the hospital said that my diagnosis was triggered by a virus.
Hmm.
So I think maybe it was a flu or something. But other than that, I was super healthy.
Oh, that's so crazy how that works. So you don't know life without type 1 diabetes?
No, I don't. And in a way, I think I'm grateful that I never had to have that big shock of like my whole life being turned upside down by a diagnosis. But there are some days where I wish I could just experience like what it would be like to be normal just for a day, eat whatever I wanted without having to think about it, or, go for a run without having to plan 3 hours ahead. But I guess there's pros and cons of both.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was diagnosed as an adult. I was 29, and I,
Oh,
I
oh,
don't
wow.
know. I mean, I'm glad I was diagnosed as an adult because I think it was easier for me to learn. But at the same time, I'm like, I think
Yeah.
back and I'm like, I used to just be able to eat pizza and not have to worry about it. And so
Yeah.
like, it bothers me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, both ways are bad, but
Yeah. So how do you manage your diabetes now? Like what technology do you use?
so I have a T-Slim pump and I use the Dexcom G6. I was on Control IQ, but I went off it a few months ago and I've actually found it a lot easier to manage. Just because with Control IQ, I was being auto suspended a lot and that made the rebound highs a lot harder to get down. So my diabetes educator said, why don't you just try, go back in manual mode and see how you go? And literally after 2 days, I was like, I don't think I'm going to go back because this is so much easier. Which
Okay.
is a bit shocking because when this technology first came out, I thought, oh, this is going to make life so much easier. But I realized like I actually manage it pretty well in manual mode.
So is that because there's like a lag once because I'm on MDI, so I'm on pens, so I don't know really how it works. Is there like
Yeah.
like because let's say you start going high, your pump notices like it takes some time for it to start
Mm.
giving you insulin. Is that how that works?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the lag, but it's also the fact that insulin isn't fast enough yet to be able to, catch up with those things quickly enough for
Mm.
me anyway. I think I'm really sensitive to basal changes. So in those times where I was trending low and my pump had been suspended for maybe like an hour, my pump wouldn't realize, but I would actually need extra bolus put on when I was eating meals because I had
Oh,
missed the basal beforehand. So it's kind of just like a bit more juggling I found with that system when I could manage it a bit more easily in manual.
I've heard other people actually say that before too. I know people that are on Omnipod that like the
Mm,
doing the control themselves as well because they're like it sometimes it just goes too high and I can manually do it
yeah,
faster.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's it. And I think different things work for different people and even like different phases of my life. When I was at university, that worked really well for me. But now I'm more established in my job and things like that. I feel more confident that I can do it manually and sort of do a better job.
Sometimes though, because I understand I'm on MDI at night, like in the middle of the night, that's when I wish I had something just automatic because I have to get up, manually give myself insulin, go back to bed.
I know.
That's the worst part.
I know. I know. If only that was like a thing we could turn on overnight, that would take care of us.
That would be so great. Yeah, because even last night I actually had pizza and it hit me
It would.
7 hours later and my levels
Yeah.
went up. I'm like, this is insane.
Oh, no. It's so rude, isn't it? 7 hours,
7 hours
just when you thought you were safe. Oh, no. Worth it, though.
Yeah, totally worth it. Do you have any like scary low stories with type 1?
Yeah, I think, the scariest low that I've ever had was my first year at university. I was a very nervous, very I kinda tried to hide my diabetes then because I was trying to, like, prove myself. I was studying, physiotherapy, so I wanted to appear as very healthy and, like, strong and capable. So at the time, I hid everything. I had skipped breakfast that morning because I was late for class. I had a few things going on, and then in the middle of my next class, I just like felt so sick, so nauseous, and they're the dangerous lows, right? Because you feel so sick that you feel like you can't eat anything. And I didn't recognize that as a hypo. I just thought maybe this is like a stomach bug or it could have been anything, and I didn't have CGM back then either. So I kind of thought I'm going to leave uni for the day. I got on the train and all of a sudden like my vision just started to go black. my field of vision went so small and I couldn't even like hold myself upright. So I just sat on the train. I tried to look in my bag for glucose tablets, but because I couldn't see very well, that was really hard. I still felt like I was going to throw up. And I basically got off the train because I thought I can't be sick in the train. And I called my mum and said, "You need to come and get me. I've I've got off the train. I don't know where I am, but like I'm in trouble." And people walking past, because it would have looked like I was on drugs or something, like I was not, I was not well. I managed to get, I think, 2 glucose tablets down, and my mum pretty much just drove up the train line that she knew went from our house to the university. And she found me and sort of just scooped me in the car and took me to emergency. And yeah, it was just a hypo, but I'd never experienced, like, I had at that point had type 1 for maybe 22 years, but I'd never experienced like that sort of nausea that came with a hypo until then. So that was really scary. But since then, I'm like so grateful for CGM because I can catch lows like that before they get that bad. But yeah, that was very scary.
That would be so scary, especially if you're alone. You're just like, oh my God, I need
Yeah,
help. Oh my God, that is so scary. And back
it
then,
was.
I know I'm like, I try not to take my CGM for granted because I know back,
Yeah.
even a few years ago, people didn't have them and you had a prick.
Yeah. So did you have a CGM since diagnosis?
Yes, they gave it to me. Well,
Oh, wow.
yeah, 1 week after I was diagnosed, I got a CGM.
Oh my gosh, that's really good.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know any other way, really, but it's just, oh my gosh, I can't imagine, especially like even when you were a baby, because I was 20 years before that, like not having the
Yeah.
technology that we have now.
No, no. And so I was on MDI as well until I was about 5. So it was fully manual for my parents. I don't think they slept much for those years.
Oh, your parents are amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite low snack?
I love honey. It's my favorite. My diabetes educator always tells me that it's not fast acting enough, but it's just my comfort low snack. Other than that, I love jelly beans, but I find them so hard to like portion control. Like if I have jelly beans and I'm low, I'll eat like 20 and then rebound so badly. So I try to stay away from the jelly bean. But yeah, honey is the best.
Is it because there's a lot of fat in honey?
No, it's just it's actually medium GI, I think. The glucose molecule is a little bit more complex than simple sugar. So it takes a little bit longer to absorb, but I still find it pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like glucose tablets solely because I
Yeah,
know exactly when it's going to hit my body. And so that's why I always keep them with me.
really.
I know they're just the easiest to predict versus like, if I were to eat
I
chocolate, who really
know.
knows when that's going to hit me?
I know, I know, and that's so hard, right? But there's sometimes when you're low and you're like, if I have to eat a glucose tablet, I will cry. Like sometimes the taste of them, it's just they taste like so powdery to me.
Uh-huh. I can only do
Do you
like the
find that?
raspberry flavor. Any other flavor, I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
so that's, yeah,
yeah.
it kind of just depends.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
So you said you like to eat. Do you have any favorite like blood sugar
yeah.
friendly meals?
I love taco bowls, and I find because they have like a good mix of protein and like the fat from the cheese and sour cream and the carbs in the rice, like it's quite a slow release meal, which is,
Mm.
I mean, it's good because it doesn't spike quickly, but I do have to watch for um, the fat spike a few hours later. But they're like my go-to if I just want something easy and relatively healthy.
I agree. Mexican seems to be like the easiest for me to eat without having to worry too much.
Yeah,
Like even just
yeah, it's good.
tacos or anything. So yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like because you get like your little protein, a little bit of vegetables, like it's all perfect.
Yeah, it is, and it's delicious.
Yeah.
So what do you think type 1 diabetes will be like in 10 years?
Well, I was actually talking to a friend about this last week because I feel like since I was diagnosed, like they have been promising a cure
Mhm.
for, like, I was diagnosed 26 years ago since then. So I am looking less at a cure and more at easier ways of managing. I think I hope that glucose monitors become smaller, more accurate, longer wear. And then I hope that the closed loop systems with the pumps and things like that become more efficient.
Mhm.
For that, we'll need faster acting insulin, and we'll probably also need a system that has maybe like some glucose or glucagon to counteract the
Yeah.
lows as well. So to me, I think the future isn't a cure at this stage, but it's like improving technology. And I think we're on the right track for that. It's just going to take some time, which is probably the most frustrating thing.
It's funny you brought up the, like, glucagon portion because I thought about that too. I'm like, "Why do we not already have that?" That seems like it would be an easy add, like,
Yeah.
just to start giving us a little bit of glucagon if we start to go low. I mean, I guess maybe just 'cause
Yeah.
it's easy for us to eat sugar, but I don't know, I'm like, that seems also like an easy add to a
I
pump.
know. I also thought about that. I think it might be because of the storage of the glucagon. It can't be stored in the same way as insulin. You know, the glucagon pens, I don't know if it's the same for you guys in America, but in Australia, you have to mix them up right before you use them
Oh, okay.
to activate them. So I don't know if it's maybe it couldn't be stored in a liquid form in a pump. I'm not sure.
I have something that looks like an inhaler almost, and so, like, somebody could just, like,
Oh,
spray it into my nose, and it would work. So I don't.
really?
Yeah, starts with a B, Best. The brand is, like, Best Kwame or something. I mean, I've
Okay.
never used it, but
I
I have 2 of them, like, ready to go just in case, and yeah, you just spray
Oh,
it
wow.
into
Wow, that's interesting. We don't have that yet. You
your
guys
nose.
are ahead of us over there.
Yeah, I'm like, I hope I don't ever have to use it, but
Yeah, it's
but
good to have though.
I agree. I don't think there's gonna be a cure anytime soon, but I think we're gonna get pretty close to, like, having, like, a fake pancreas attached to us.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some people have like engineered their own closed loop pumps. So really, it's just about the companies getting that technology and making it all above board, which will
Yes,
be exciting.
that is very exciting. So do you have any
Yeah,
tips for anybody that's recently diagnosed with type 1?
I think my biggest tip would just be to go easy on yourself because when you're living with type 1, you're literally comparing yourself to other people, but also to yourself in terms of all the metrics that we look at with diabetes, whether that's your time in range or your A1C or even, you know, your standard deviation. It's so easy to get caught in a trap of feeling like you're not doing enough or not making enough progress. But you have to remember that this is a lifelong disease that you're never going to get a break from. So it's so normal that you're not going to get it right all of the time. And I think that self-compassion is really important in not getting to diabetes burnout. So that's what I try to practice for myself. It's easier said than done, but that's my advice for newly diagnosed people.
I love it. So good. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, especially staying up
Oh,
late
thank
for
you
us.
for having me. No worries at all. So
Thank
nice to chat to you.
you too.